Welcome everyone to M365 UK, Microsoft 365 UK User Group, the March edition. So my name is Chirag Patel. I'm the organizer here. So this session today is being recorded. So feel free to ask questions and post your questions throughout the chat with our presenters today. And so our presenters today are Gautam Sheth from India. And we have also Pragati Jain here from UK as well. Both MVPs, new MVPs rather. So welcome to both of them to M365 UK. And so the agenda for today, usually for those of you who join M365 UK, it's a standard 2-hour session we have today. So typically we take a break around 5 p.m. for 10 minutes or so. No real formality around the time, so you're welcome to stay for both the sessions as and when how they kind of go in terms of the shorter or longer. So first session we have from Gautam is what's up with PnP PowerShell, which is the Microsoft Pattern and Practices initiative. So we'll look into that in a short while. And then we have the second session from Pragati Jain, which is somewhat slightly different from the regular M365 UK sessions that we have. So this one's going to be all about the Power Query and its capabilities in order to transform that data that you have within the Power BI. So looking forward to both of the sessions today, and I hope you are as well. And so before we obviously go and hand over to Gautam, a bit about myself. For those of you who's new to M365 UK, I'm Chirag Patel. I work with Patel Consulting here in the UK. techchirag.com is the best way to get to me. I'm the main organizer here for, in fact, the only organizer for M365 UK, and also a community speaker throughout the UK and other parts of the world as well. So really kind of work as a consultant. Been working with SharePoint, SQL Server for many, many years, and obviously for the last 5-6 years around Microsoft 365 and the Teams, what have you. So feel free to reach out. I'm also a chartered IT professional member as well as the assessor for memberships, and really just to kind of maintain the good IT practices and really kind of make sure the IT is for good, really. So M365 UK is the Twitter handle as well as on the LinkedIn. So at any point, feel free to reach out or connect on that as well. In terms of, we have a session planned as well for next month, April the 13th. So we have 2 great speakers again from the community speaking circuit. For most of you, I'm sure you've come across them. So Thomas Positek from Poland, as well as Todd Clint from US. 2 great sessions going to be on Power Automate approvals for all the advanced scenario capabilities. As well as the PowerShell, and Todd, it basically sings and dances everything about PowerShell. So really looking forward to both those sessions next month. So M365 UK has been running since June 2020, with over 800 members and constantly joining. And I think what really kind of is important to mention here is that I tend to bring a variety of sessions for all walks of professionals, because I myself know in various spaces that I work with, there is no one person who does just one part of the technology. So hence this hopefully really helps you out in your day-to-day kind of professions, to be able to gather multiple skill sets from the multiple Microsoft 365 services. So those are the kind of the links there, and I'll post this in the chat window soon, so you can at least subscribe. And YouTube is probably the main area to be able to subscribe to, not just today's but also the past recordings as well. So hopefully that will be of beneficial to you. Just like Gautam, who's obviously, who really is obviously well known in development side of things, but very kind of new, if you like, in terms of the speaking wise. And so I urge you and really kind of, will support you, of course, if you wanted to submit your session for M365 UK as well. So that's the link and the QR code there as well. So it doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. It could be any point about M365. And so I would love to hear your experiences on that, and look forward to seeing you in the future on the speaking side of things. Just a quick shout as well to as many community events happen, and this one is obviously sponsor free. Teams Nation is happening next week on Wednesday with over 170 speakers and many sessions covering all things Microsoft 365 Teams and SharePoint and Power Platform. So hopefully some of you may have come across. If not, do take time out to join. So it's a free and supportive event that's happening, and you got pretty much all the folks from Microsoft as well, which is great to at least get all the latest and the greatest from all things Teams. On that note, obviously, as some of you know, it's the 5th anniversary as well for Microsoft Teams, and it's kind of really amazing to see that over the last 5 years, a lot have happened. So really kind of excited about that in terms of what Teams has and where it's going as well. So so hope to see some of you next week as well on the Teams Nation. Okay, so let's head over to Gautam Sheth with his session around PnP PowerShell, and just wanted to quickly introduce Gautam. As some of you know, he works with Valo, the intranet, modern intranet folks, and he's been in SharePoint space for nearly 10 years now, with various versions of SharePoint on-prem as well as the online versions. And really at the heart of it, he's a developer, and in particular, he not only just develops code around it, but he's also one of the maintainers for the Microsoft 365 PnP initiative as well. So he's the maintainer as well as the contributor to a lot of code samples. And I'm sure you've come across his materials and his code samples and his experiences on that. So kind of really looking forward to this session, because a lot of that hopefully will come together and see some demos. And if you're new to PowerShell, don't worry, because if you're an IT pro and if you use a lot more PowerShell with other areas, you can do a lot more with PnP and hopefully make your life easier in order to operate on a daily basis from administration as well as building solutions for that. So with that, I'd just like to say thanks to Gautam for being here, and welcome to M365 UK. Gautam, over to you.
Thanks, Chirag. Thank you for having me. Yep. Okay. So today's session. Okay, so today's session is what's up with PnP PowerShell, and thank you, Chirag, again for having me here. A bit nervous, but yeah, about me, I'm Gautam Sheth. I'm a developer at heart. I work as a software developer at Valo, and I'm also like a part of the PnP core team as well as a maintainer on the PnP repository. A recently crowned MVP, so quite happy about that. Feel free to reach out to me on socials like LinkedIn and Twitter. Yep. So about PnP. So before we go there, let's take a look at some history lesson here. So anybody knows the person here on the top right corner? Anybody? Yeah. Feel free to open the mic and shout out or ask any questions or anything that you have in mind. So okay, so this person is Erwin van Hoonen. So the PnP PowerShell, that is a PowerShell module. This is the brainchild of Erwin, and this started sometime back in 2014, and it's still going strong. So Erwin used to work a lot on PowerShell, and a lot of stuff used to be on-premise, like SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, and those kind of days. I remember like on-prem servers and all that kind of stuff. So he had a lot of code samples and code snippets that he wanted to share. And then he got in touch with Veso Juvonen. So he's one of the program managers in Microsoft, and the other folks from Microsoft, they kind of got together and created this patterns and practices initiative. So as part of this patterns and practices initiative, Erwin created this PnP PowerShell repository repository, and he shared his own code samples and snippets as an open source contribution there. And from then on, since 2014, it has been downloaded millions and millions of times. So every month, PnP PowerShell commands are executed, like 2 billion commands. So you can check the number of people who are downloading here. This is a screenshot from PowerShell Gallery. So PowerShell Gallery is where people usually download the modules that they want to use in their own day-to-day work there. So you can check the number of downloads here. So, and this PnP PowerShell itself is fully open source. It is free, MIT licensed and everything. So it is going to stay like that forever. So if you are not happy with some sort of a code, you can just download that piece of code, and or you want to modify some stuff there, or you want to contribute from there, you can just download it from GitHub and submit the requests there and change it. So this is completely free and MIT licensed. So that means that you can download the code, modify it as you want, and you don't even have to like worry about the licensing or anything around that. So just to put the 2 billion number in statistics, that is roughly like 1,000 million. You divide that by 30, so 30 would be the number of days in a month roughly, and you multiply that by 2, so that turns out around 60 to 70 million commands are executed per day. So, and this is just the number of commands for which we track the telemetry. So we in PnP PowerShell, there is also an option to turn off telemetry. So a lot of folks do turn off telemetry for a lot of reasons. And so in that scenario, we don't even track the command. So it's highly popular. And it's roughly quite awesome there. So going back to 2015, it started in it started with around 140 commandlets. So the image is a bit grainy, but that's fine, because you can see here that it starts, some of them commands start with like SPO prefix. So in those initial days, we had something like SharePoint management shell, and we had the PnP PowerShell, and both of them used to have this particular SPO prefix. So all of the commands in PnP started with SPO prefix there. So it will be like add SPO content type and execute SPO query, and those kind of commands used to be there. Cut to 2017, steady growth. So around 70, 80 commands were added here. But one big change that happened here is the change of prefix. So what happened is a lot of people started complaining, like, why are SharePoint management shell and PnP PowerShell having the same prefix and that kind of stuff. So one major change that happened was all the commandlets, their prefix got changed to PnP. So instead of add SPO content type, it got changed to add PnP content type, and like that way, all of these commandlets got renamed to like with a PnP prefix. So that was a major change that happened in that era with the addition of the 70-80 commandlets that got added there. Cut to 2022. 5 years down the line, a lot of people started contributing. So right now we are around 600 commandlets. A lot of people do keep on contributing, so the number is going to keep on increasing every month or that kind of stuff. So based on the number of pull requests that we receive, or based on the feature requests that we receive, we keep on adding the commands based on the requests that we receive. So right now it's around 600 commands, and yeah, that's how it is right now. What's new in PnP PowerShell? So let's talk a bit about 2014 to 2019 duration. So in that duration, we had PnP PowerShell, but if you look at the PowerShell gallery, it was not exactly PnP PowerShell. It was something like SharePoint PnP PowerShell online. So the change happened in like early 2020, late 2019. This kind of renamed to PnP.PowerShell from the old PnP PowerShell. It is the same as the old one. It is quite different as well. So the old one was not cross-platform. This one is. So it will the new PnP PowerShell, it will work on Windows, Mac, Linux, everywhere where PowerShell is supported. So that is where it will work. The new PnP PowerShell will only be supported for SharePoint online, and the old PnP PowerShell, like that is the one that we call as the SharePoint PnP PowerShell online. We have deprecated it. It is not maintained anymore. But if you are like an on-prem person and you found some sort of a bug fix, you've found some sort of a bug, or you wanted to fix some stuff, you can easily download it from GitHub and use it in your own environment there. So you can modify it at your own in your own environment there. The reason behind the deprecation is there is a lot of new stuff that is happening in SharePoint PnP PowerShell, I mean SharePoint Online, and the old PnP PowerShell was simply not, how do I put it this way, not fast enough to be supportable that way. So besides that, we had a lot of legacy code. So let me just share my screen here. Yeah. If you look at this gallery, if you search in PowerShell gallery, you will find a couple of these PnP PowerShell Online 2016, 2013, 2019, and that kind of stuff. So we had different versions of the same code, and we couldn't simply maintain those 4 versions because we had to write conditional logic for each of these versions, and that was simply not possible to be. I mean, people didn't have the time and energy to work on that, so we simply decided to like deprecate that. That was one of the reasons. Yep. So one of the reasons we kind of deprecated the old one. It still works. It will work fine for SharePoint on-prem, depending on the version that you download. So SharePoint PnP PowerShell 2013 will work on 2013, same with 2016 and 2019. So they will continue working, but it's just that if you find any bug or if you want to add some features, it won't be supported via this particular repository there. About this new PnP PowerShell, we had what makes it cross-platform is CSOM.NET standard. So the old PnP, this SharePoint PnP PowerShell Online, it was based on .NET framework, but this new PnP PowerShell, it is based on CSOM.NET standard. So by default, CSOM.NET standard itself is cross-platform. So that makes this PnP PowerShell also workable on other platforms like Linux or Mac besides Windows. And also this, if you want to get that working on other platforms, Microsoft came up with PowerShell 7, so you can download PowerShell on those platforms and use the new PnP PowerShell there. Some other stuff is that every night we publish a new version of PnP PowerShell. So if you look at the gallery here, yeah, if you look at this gallery and sorry, version history, you can see here that all of these have a nightly suffix there. So 1972 nightly and those kind of stuff. So every night a new version of PnP PowerShell gets published. So what is the difference here is this is based on the dev branch. So what happens is some people in the community, they keep on adding some new stuff, or there is some change in the documentation, or there is some bug fix or a new feature that gets added. So every time somebody merges into the dev branch, it gets automatically published the next day. So this PnP PowerShell is like if somebody has submitted a bug fix and you want to use it like quite urgently, you can just download the nightly version of PnP PowerShell and you will be good to go there. Go from there. The new version of PnP PowerShell, it works across multiple stuff like PnP, like PowerShell 5, PowerShell 7, Azure Cloud Shell, Azure Functions, and even Azure Automation as well. The authentication has been quite completely revamped here. So the old SharePoint PnP PowerShell, it used to be based on the adal.NET, like Azure Active Directory library, and this one is based on the Microsoft Authentication Library.NET. So it is the newer version of authentication library that we have, and based on that, we are able to support a lot of authentication scenarios like standard username, password, or multi-factor authentication, or like like client ID certificates or certificates with thumbprint or old stuff as well. So yeah, we also support the old one, web login here. Web login is, how do I put it this way? Please don't use it. It is based on extreme legacy legacy technology. So how it uses is that it opens a browser window, and inside it, from that browser window, it will open up. I mean, you will be asked to log into your own tenant, and from there we grab the cookies, and using those cookies we try to authenticate to SharePoint Online. Now this will work for certain commands, but for other commands like PnP is not just SharePoint. It will also support other stuff like Power Platform Flow, or even Teams, or a lot of other stuff that is based on graph. So cookie based authentication is not supported for those commands, so that will not work. So yeah, as much as possible, don't use web login. Instead of that, use interactive login. I can give you a demo around that. There is also support for a device login, or there is also support for access token. So there are a couple of other libraries, or if you have your own code mechanism to get the access token, you can just simply pass that access token, and we'll use that access token to authenticate to SharePoint Online or Graph or whatever you want to use there. Yep. So how do you get started with using PnP PowerShell? Simple. You use install module name PnP PowerShell, and once you do that, it will download this particular version 190. And if you specify this allow pre-release flag, in that scenario, it will download this latest version here. So by default, this particular version, major version, will be downloaded. But if you want, as I mentioned, that if you want some code from the dev branch or something like that, you can just simply use the pre-release parameter, and you will be able to download. I mean, you will be able to use the latest code from the dev branch. So you can check that out, and you know how that goes. How about authentication? So one major difference in the new PnP PowerShell is the authentication. One of the requirements of CSOM.NET standard is the necessity of an Azure ID app. It can be any Azure ID app, but there needs to be an Azure ID app in between present there. And this is one of the requirements of CSOM.NET standard as well as Microsoft Graph. The old SharePoint PnP PowerShell, it didn't require any Azure AD app. It used to work without those kind of requirements, but this one requires an Azure AD app. I can show you how we can do that. So I highly recommend the usage of PnP management shell. It's a multi-tenant app, and it requires only some delegated permissions here. So let's quickly check the demo here. I already have it installed, so yeah. One parameter here is Azure environment. So by default, you don't need to specify it. It will always take the commercial cloud, but there are certain people who are working highly classified environments like China cloud, or there is Germany cloud, or I don't know what this is, but production, yeah, US government or US government defense department. So in those scenarios, you need to specify the Azure environment there, but we don't require that. And yeah, tenant name, I'll just specify. Sorry. Okay, yeah, you don't need to specify anything here. So it will ask for it will open a prompt here. Let's check into this one. Oops. Okay, so once you register this PnP management shell app, it will open this kind of a prompt here. So it asks for a lot of these permissions. These seem like a lot of permissions, but these are all delegated permissions. So some of them are graph, some of them require SharePoint permissions. But once you consent to this app, this is a multi-tenant app, and you can just click on accept that. So it will create an Azure AD app in your own environment, and after that you will be able to log into SharePoint Online there. So a lot of people ask like, why do you require these many permissions here? And the reason behind that is PnP. There are a lot of 600 commands there. So some of them communicate with Planner, some of them communicate with Teams, some of them with SharePoint or SharePoint term store, or I don't know, flow and that kind of stuff. So this contains a list of all the all the permissions which will be necessary to make all of the commands work with PnP PowerShell. Having said that, this is not mandatory. This is a recommendation. So if you don't like, so I'll just show you how that works. So I added this register PnP management shell access. So what you need to do is, you can go to enterprise application because this is a multi-tenant app, and so it will add this Azure ID multi-tenant application here. Oops. Okay, if you look at the permissions, so it asks for these Microsoft Graph permissions like service message or chat read write or group read write. So around 20 to 30 permissions are requested here. A lot of people are a bit worried, like, why do you require these many permissions? But as I've said, these are all delegated permissions, so there are no application permissions that are required for PnP PowerShell. Having said that, if you don't want to use this, you don't need to do that. You can create your own Azure AD app and you can use that. So to do that, you can use this command, register PnP Azure AD app. What will happen is, I'll show that to you here. Okay. Okay, so you can create your own Azure AD app here. So this, we'll have to wait for 1 second. But by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask the question here.
You're doing good, Gautam.
Thanks.
I think for those, just while you're doing that, I think for those of you who are new, this is kind of really where I think a lot of folks get stuck sometimes as well because of permissions and all that. But believe me, this is not the hardest part. This is probably the most one that takes longer. But once you're in, then it's very straightforward, which I'm sure we'll see that. So carry on, Gautam.
Thanks. So this when you use this register PnP Azure AD app, it will create a new Azure AD app, and it will generate a certificate for you to use as well. So it asks for a prompt here. Again, password. So by default, it will have just 4 permissions like read write all groups, read write user profile, full control of graph, full control of site collections, and SharePoint control of collections, and same with user read write profile here. So I'll just quickly accept this. Don't worry about this one. It's fine. You can just close this modal pop-up, and if you can see here, it generated a PFX file as well as a CER file for you to use to authenticate. it created this Azure AD app. The name of that app is Test M365 UK app. It has this particular client ID and the thumbprint and base64 encoding of that certificate as well. So if you go here, dashboard, you check the Azure Active Directory. Yeah, let's go to app registrations. Yeah, so you can see here created on 16th of March. So when you create this Azure AD app, the PowerShell itself will by default add basic redirect URIs for mobile and desktop applications, so it will make your job easier. It will also enable the public client flows to yes, so that will also make authentication stuff easier. If you go to the certificate, it will have this thumbprint like 3896, which is what we have here, 38961. And if you look at the API permissions, you see that we have added these 5 permissions: group, read, write all, user, read, write all, and in the graph, and same for SharePoint, like all sites full control, and user, read, write all. Now, these are basic permissions that we add here, but if you don't want these 5 permissions, you can add your own scopes here, like SharePoint application permissions. We also added IntelliSense here, so you don't have to worry about, I guess. Okay, maybe you might have to add that. So SharePoint application permissions or SharePoint. Yeah, SharePoint delegate permissions. With then we have. Okay, it's not going easy. So okay, so there's something missing, but you can also specify your own custom Microsoft Graph permissions as well. So you don't need to like just require graph group read write or user read write. You can specify other permissions like teams create or group create or those kind of permissions as well. So that is available. Another option is get AZ access token. So a lot of folks use the AZ modules to authenticate to Azure. They also expose the AZ access token, so you can use that exact access token there. So So you can specify the access token string here, and it will authenticate to that particular site collection or a site URL using that access token. So this can be quite useful if you have a long running jobs and you don't want to like authenticate to different domains, like different services each time and that kind of stuff. So that is also supported. By the way, if you didn't notice it, I connected to this particular environment, but it didn't ask for any password. If I go to this another site collection, because I know this is my own tenant, so again, it didn't ask for any password. And trust me, it is working because I can check here. You can use the get PnP connection and you can see that this is the site, the URL to which I've connected to. If I go to the root site URL, and if I do a get PnP connection again, we have this connection to the root site. So how do I do that? Uh, this is something that can be quite useful for like service account scenarios or those kind of stuff. So one of the ways to do that is to use the secret store and secret management modules which Microsoft has provided. Using that, you can create a multi-platform vault on your own machines and you use that to authenticate to SharePoint Online. So what happens is when I say like connect PnP online gautamdev.sharepoint.com, it will search the credential store here. So if I'll open the credential manager and go to Windows credentials, you will see that this kind of credential has been created because I already created one secret using one stored credential using this command add PnP stored credential. So you can add as many credentials as you want and you can specify as many tenants as you want. So once you do that, it will that credentials will automatically get added here. Uh, so I'll say Okay, so let's call it this way. If I go to credential manager again, you will see, yeah. Yeah, so it created a new credential here today with this kind of a credentials here. So as many credentials as you want, you can add that. And once you do that, it will never prompt you for credentials again, at least on that particular machine here. Quite useful if you have like scheduled tasks or that kind of stuff running on the machines or a VMs or that kind of stuff. Yep. PnP PowerShell, as I mentioned, has like 600 commands, but not all commands, I mean, not every scenario or every stuff is supported. Like graph will have thousands of endpoints, but PnP PowerShell has just minimum basic support for certain commands related to teams or planners or that kind of stuff. So how do you extend PnP PowerShell? So one way to do that is you can use the raw HTTP request. So you can connect to this tenant. Okay. What you can do is you can grab the access token. So access token you can grab using the get PnP access token command. It will give you the resource for graph. But if you don't want, if you want for SharePoint, you can specify SharePoint or that kind of stuff, whatever you want here. And that access token then you can use further in your own scripts that you have. So I'll just make a simple graph request to the me endpoint. Yep. And gets me the data from Microsoft Graph. Now in PnP PowerShell, I know that this native command is not supported. So that's why I had to use this raw HTTP request to get the data. So you can just specify the access token and you will be able to get the data from Graph. Or if you want it from SharePoint, you can make some changes here and there. So yeah, for SharePoint, it is even more easier. So yeah, you can just use the invoke PnP SP REST method. So that will make a call to the recently connected site collection, and it will get me all the lists and that kind of stuff. So if I change the site collection here, yeah, the change happened here. So obviously you can see here that site collection is different and the lists that are retrieved are also quite different here. So this is some way you can extend the PnP PowerShell to make your own HTTP requests to certain endpoints which are not right now natively supported. So we can keep adding commands for certain endpoints and that. But if it is not supported and you need it quite urgently, you can just make a raw HTTP request to Graph or SharePoint and get stuff done from there. Yeah, one of my favorite features is batching. So batching in this case is powered by PnP Core. So PnP PowerShell is kind of an abstraction layer over a lot of stuff. So it is relying on SharePoint CSOM. It relies on PnP framework. It also relies on Microsoft Graph, and same with relies on PnP Core SDK as well. So a lot of these SDKs make our job to commands easier, to make create commands easier. So let's take a look at batching. So take for example, consider an example where you want to add like 50 list items. All right. So let's take a look at yeah, simple code here. If you look at this code, it's a simple code. I'm going to create 50 list items inside a SharePoint list. The list name is item test list. Okay, so let's paste this command here. In the meantime, I'll also quickly connect on a different side here. So yep. Okay, let's wait for this command to complete. Okay, So it took 35 seconds to execute. And if we create the same command from batch, yeah, 6 seconds. That's all it took to create the list items. And I'm not kidding here. So picks or it didn't happen. So let's take a look at item test list. Yeah. Yep. The items have been created. It's a simple title, but yeah, items have been created and 50 items have been created. So it took 30 seconds to create 50 items. But if you use batch, it just takes 6 seconds. So that's how you can execute your code faster using the batch. Okay, screen share is working. Chirag?
Yep, it's
Yeah,
working.
okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Okay, so yeah, that's how you can make your life easier or faster. Like you want to take a coffee break, you can use the non-batch code. You want to get stuff done quickly, you can use the batch command. So we support batching for these couple of commands. So add, set, or delete list items, as well as for PnP syntax. I don't know how that works there, but yeah, it is supported. Batching is supported for that. Modern pages. Yeah, modern pages. Funny thing about modern pages is Microsoft has not provided any API to create modern page programmatically. Any API, there is no support to do that. The only way to do that programmatically is either you use PnP JS on the client side, or you can use the PnP PowerShell or PnP framework or core to do that on the server side. But there is no specific API to create modern pages. So PnP PowerShell makes the job easier to create or update the modern pages. No documented API. Sorry, that's what I mentioned. But yeah, no documented API to create these modern pages. Yeah, Microsoft being Microsoft, but yeah, how do we do that? Yep. Yeah. So yeah, by the way, there is also support for multilingual pages. So you want to create a page and you want to create an exact copy of that page in a different language. You can do that as well using the add or set PnP page commandlets. And by default, modern pages also have the capability to be scheduled. So say, for example, there is a news and you want to schedule that news to be published at a certain time, then you can use the schedule command, schedule parameter to set that particular time there. So let's take a look at creating a multilingual page here. Mm, yeah, authentication. So yeah, I hate writing. Let's go to this particular site collection. Yeah, PowerShell 7 is actually quite good. You can click on hyperlinks from inside PowerShell. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Nothing related to this one. So we'll just create a simple page here. If you want to specify certain properties like layout type, or you want to promote it as a news article, you want to promote it as a template page, or you want to promote it as a home page, you can do that. Layout type, so it is either article or headerless or home. Those kind of layouts are supported. Single web part app page are supported. Spaces, if you want to create a spaces page, I mean page which supports spaces web part, you can do that, or a standard topic page or that kind of stuff. Right now I will just create a default standard article page. Yeah, the default layout is article. So okay, refresh it here. Yep, you can see it just created a new page here with standard layout with a page without any images or anything, but you can add a image or that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you can also like disable the comments on that particular page. So yeah, comments enabled or disabled, you can specify that. And yeah, so I want to create like a translation of this particular page. Okay, so what you can do is you can specify this one parameter, translate and translation language codes. So 1036 and 1037 are two languages which are not right now. Yeah, which are not right now. Yeah, is what supported in the site collection. So let's go to the regional settings. So this one, language setting. Sorry. So right now it is just English and Dutch, which is supported. But I want to create pages in 2 more. So what usually you used to have to do is you will need to you need to select a language from here, save it, and that kind of stuff. But if you specify just the language codes here, uh, yeah. Yep. So what happens is, it adds support for 2 new languages, French and Hebrew. So both of these languages support has been added. If you go to the site contents, site pages, you will find that 2 new folders have been created for French pages as well as for Hebrew pages. And if you look at this particular page, you will see that this page has been created. This page has not been you will find this kind of a message here, and that kind of stuff is there. So you can create a copy of that page and that kind of stuff that can happen here using PnP PowerShell. So it just makes your life a lot more easier and to create multilingual pages there. Yep. Any questions so far?
No, I think we just had an earlier question. I think you probably answered it as well through the demonstration, but I'll ask the question anyways. Can we limit the permissions on the app registration when you were registering the PnP application?
So let's take a look at this documentation. So you will find this kind of options here: graph application permissions, graph delegated permissions, SharePoint permissions, and SharePoint application, and SharePoint delegated permissions. So you can specify whatever permissions that you want. So maybe there is an example as well.
Cool, that's great. Thanks.
Thanks. You can just specify whatever application or delegated permissions that you want, and it will create the app with those permissions there. So, yep. Okay. SharePoint list, quite interesting. Like it's the same as the old one. Like we used to have SharePoint lists since 2010 and 2013 and 2007, I guess, as well. But what's something new here in SharePoint Online is this command we added, copy PnP list. Quite happy with, quite particularly proud of this command as well, because it makes your job so much easier. What it does is it creates a copy of the exact structure. It creates a structural copy of this particular list. So let's go to this particular site collection. I named it PnP test list because I was not very imaginative. So I created a simple test list, and inside that I added a couple of columns: test edit time, again test DT, UK demo test. It's a choice column. What I did was I also added a couple of views here, like board view. So these are actually quite good looking views that are available. There is a calendar view as well, so you can create a calendar view. I just created those views from the UI. I also created just another view because I didn't want the all items view. I just created another view. So what copy PnP list does is that it copies the entire structure of that list. I'll call it copy of test PnP list. Okay. And if you go to site contents, a list has been created with these exact columns here. And if you look at, if you look at the views, it will create the views as well, board view and I don't know, calendar view. It copied over all the settings as well. I don't have any particular settings as such set, but if there was any setting set, those will be copied over as well. So it's pretty fast, and you can just easily make copies of a list, based on their structure. So what is also pretty super cool is you can specify a different site collection as well. So if you want, you can specify that particular destination site URL and it will create a copy inside that site collection so as well. So this makes your job quite easier. So earlier we used to have to kind of rely on either a PnP template, or you used to reach out to a particular dev who will have to create a like a column or that kind of, I mean, who has to create the columns or content types or that kind of stuff. But in this particular case, this just makes the copy of that SharePoint list. What is the amazing thing about this is that it is based on SharePoint site script. So this is all executed on the server side. So when you use this copy PnP list, there is a job created on the server, and that whenever that job is executed, your list gets created. But it is extremely fast to do all that kind of stuff here. Yeah, one major limitation about this is it only copies the structure and not the content. So that is one limitation here there. We are looking into adding support for content as well, but yeah, it's a bit of a priority and challenge kind of stuff. So it is a bit more complicated once you get involved with lookups and taxonomies and those kind of stuff. So yeah, we have not added support for copying the content, but added just the structure is there. So yeah, you can use that. Content types. Yeah, pretty decent stuff. Content types are there. Remember the old days, like at least I remember in SharePoint 2013, we used to have, at least I created one it was the good old, or how do I call it, good old, but yeah, old days of SharePoint on-prem, where we used to have like a content type hub, or we used to create a site collection. We used to set it as a content type hub from the old admin center, and then from there we created the content types, and those content types would get published, and then you used to have a site collection where you used to kind of receive those content types, and that kind of stuff used to happen there. So sometimes when you missed those content types, you had to go to the central admin and run that content type hub, content type publishing timer jobs. Yeah, those kind of stuff used to be there. So but yeah, this Microsoft created these couple of commands here, like publish PnP content type, unpublish PnP content types, and get the status, and that those kind of commands. So basically the same scenario is supported in SharePoint Online as well. So you by default, Microsoft has whenever you create a new tenant, you go to oh, not this one. Maybe I deleted that, but basically there is a default site collection that has been created, and that is set as the one that you use for content type publishing. So that will act as the host of the content types, and from there the content types will get to the destination sites. So yeah, so to make the jobs easy.
I think if I remember correctly, I think it's content type hub, all one word,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and
could
it,
be.
and it yeah, it never. I don't think it shows up in the search at all.
Oh,
There
okay.
is probably like a hidden site, but if you was to type in the
Yeah,
URL content type
yeah.
hub, then yeah, you're right.
Let's
I think just sorry, no S. Yeah, and then yeah.
Yeah, this content type hub, yeah, strange. Yeah, so yeah, this thanks, Chirag. Yeah, yeah, so basically you can create your content types in this content type hub site collection, and from there you can execute this you can execute these commands to like publish your content type, or if you want to unpublish your content type, and then it will get like published or unpublished. And you can also check whether what is the status of the content type publishing and those kind of stuff. So this is all available in the PnP nightly builds right now. Once we release the 1.10 version, right now we are on 1.9, but once we release 1.10, these commands will be available as a major in the major release. But if you're on the nightly, you can obviously use it right away as well. Yeah, I don't recommend using of content type hubs. One, because it is quite time consuming and that kind of stuff, and you need to be like wondering, like the change management of the content types can get quite difficult, like, and time consuming and that. So what I would usually recommend is create your own content types in a particular site collection and then use PnP provisioning to extract the content types and then publish, or I mean deploy those deploy the template and create those content types in those site collections where you want. So that way it is quite faster and much more how do I put it, this a much more regulated manner there. So that's why I recommend the PnP provisioning template. Yeah, there are absolutely use cases for these kind of cases. So if you don't rely on PnP provisioning, then this will make complete sense as well. So yeah. One of these are a couple of other interesting commands that we added. So one of my favorite is the list item comment. So if some user has added certain comments inside a SharePoint list item, so take for example this site collection test list maybe. Okay, yeah, let's this one only. So take for example this particular list item. I want to add some comment. Group. Yep. Now I want to get, or I want to make an audit of those comments, or I want to do some processing of those comments. So you can just use the add or add PnP list item or remove or get PnP list item comment commandlets to retrieve those list item comments. So this is also based on the work that has been done in PnP core SDK. So we rely a lot on those SDK as well. So you can retrieve the PnP list item command. So a lot of people use this to get the sentiment analysis or do some sort of a like sentiment analysis of a particular word or the statement and do some sort of a reporting based on that. So you can use that, like whether this comment is positive, whether this comment is negative, or that kind of stuff. You can do that. Another command that I love is this one, rename PnP tenant site. So take yeah, this is not a very imaginative site collection URL, but I want to rename it to like a different one. You can use this command to like rename the site collection URL. So you can just specify the. Let me try this. Ah. Okay, I'm not on the nightly build right now, but yeah, you can basically just use the PnP tenant site command and specify the source and destination URL, and that will the site collection will automatically will get a new URL there. So it might take some time for certain things to change. For example, if you have like a flow or power apps or certain other stuff that is dependent on the URL, it might take some time, but yeah, the site collection will then get a new URL from there on. One other favorite is this one, sync PnP SharePoint user profiles from Azure Active Directory. So by default, Azure Active Directory is kind of like the single source of truth where all the users will be present and the users will have certain properties, and some of those properties are there, like those users will get synced to SharePoint user profile, and along with that sync mechanism, by default some properties are also moved like pushed from the Azure AD to the SharePoint user profile. But then there are certain properties which are not present in the SharePoint user profile that you want to use from Azure Active Directory. So you can use this particular command to specify those properties and sync those properties from Azure AD to SharePoint user profiles there. So, and this is also quite helpful command. All of this is available in the docs as well, so you can just check out the doc from the docs as well. Same with cop.
Gautam, sorry, very quick one. We got a few minutes, but I think maybe we can head for wrapping up. But yeah, do finish up. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Yep, copy PnP team. So you can just clone a team from one team to another. It will also copy over the, you can specify what all stuff you want to copy from team, like tabs or channels or tab structure and that kind of stuff. The next commands, new PnP teams and add PnP teams user. Those are not new commands, but they have been existing for quite some time. What we improved in the latest release is the bulk addition of users. So earlier, what used to happen is it only supported like one user at a time, like adding of a particular user. So right now we have added capability to add like thousands or 10,000s of users as well. So if you want to create a new PnP team or you want to create a new team and you want to add like 500 users, you can just use the new PnP teams team and specify those users. And that users can come from a CSV or from Azure Active Directory or wherever those are present. And you can just add those users to an existing team as well. And it's same with a PnP teams users. So you can change the role of a user from member to owner and vice versa. Yep, I'll just skip these comments here because yeah, we're running out of time. But yeah, some of you folks might have noticed that PnP's documentation was hosted on docs.microsoft.com, but that has been removed now. So the content single source of truth will be this one, pnp.github.io/PowerShell. So use that as the source of truth for documentation and everything. Docs Microsoft has been removed because there were yeah, strange. This is like what happens is a lot of folks started assuming that PnP PowerShell is a Microsoft supported library, and then they just used to raise issues like why is this not working and that kind of stuff. So we had a chat with Microsoft guys, and they decided that like yeah, let's not host it here because it might cause some confusion around supportability of PnP PowerShell. So yeah, that's why they removed the docs from there. You can find the source code on GitHub as well. So it is fully open source, MIT licensed, as I mentioned in the first slide. So you can just peek through the code and whatever you go through and understand the code as well. More than happy to welcome your feedback, your issues, any suggestions, anything at all, doc fixes, documentation updates, anything at all. Feel free to just reach out to me or on the GitHub issues list or anything. More than happy to look into them. And yep. That's all from my end. If you have any questions, yeah, just open the mic or post it in the chat here.
Absolutely, no, that's great, Gautam. Really good session. It was a lot to cover, and I think you did very well. And I have to give you a 3 clap, right?
Thanks,
especially
thanks.
like you say, you're kind of fairly new to the speaking. So no, well done. Thank you so much. And you're getting all the round of applause there as well. So
thanks.
Very good one. I think I'll go straight to the questions. So we got a hand from Sohail. Hi, Sohail. Far away.
Hi, Chirag. Hi, Gautam. Thank you, Gautam. That was a great session. This might be a little bit out of scope, so shoot me down. I've been using PnP for a little while, and I must say I normally don't use the standard commandlet. PnP is really good. So credit to all the creators and supporters there. I'm using the PnP convert to PnP page command, migrating the custom pages from the classic sites to the modern one. And the command runs fine, but the output is without any content. I did raise an issue already on the GitHub page, but I haven't heard. Have you come across anything which I'm missing or anything I should be doing differently? Maybe you don't have to answer this here. I appreciate that this might be a little bit out of scope. So, but if you have a chance, I'll paste the link that I raised.
Oh, okay. You raised it in the PnP framework one. Okay. We can look into that.
Yeah, I've been asked to raise it here. Like Mark asked me, one of the MEP asked me to raise it here, and I did it here.
That's a nice one to take away.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a straight answer for that one right at the moment, but yeah, this is the right place to answer, and the folks who look after this repository, they'll probably, hopefully, they can look into.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect you will have an answer.
No, that's fine. So I would have done the same. Absolutely. I think if you got the person on hand.
Yeah.
No
so
problem.
Thank you, Gautam, for clarifying the issues around PowerShell, SharePoint PowerShell, and PnP PowerShell. That was that was a really tough one because I spent 3 hours trying to see why some commands didn't work on another one and it worked on the other one. So that was a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Glad to help you. All right.
Good.
Thanks.
I think I'm probably going to just probably go down there a bit, just conscious of time wise. I think yeah, you're around for the next hour or so, right? Gautam, or
yeah, I can be around for
yeah,
10, 15.
absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate you're from India as well, and I think it's what nearly 10:30, I think. So
Yeah.
it's late as it is. So yeah, I think attendees, thanks for being here. I think obviously any questions, then put them in the chat window for the next 5-10 minutes. Then I'm sure Gautam will try and answer. If not, then I think you can follow the M365 UK Twitter handle, and you can post your questions there too. So I've posted the link in the chat window for all of you. Please, there's only about 3 or 4 questions. If you can fill out the feedback, then that will certainly really help Gautam for sure. And if there's anything that you would like to see in his presentation for future events, then that would also help him too. So, fire away with that the feedback link that I've put in the chat window there. So I think with that, all I would say to Gautam is, once again, big thanks for being here at M365 UK, and it's, like I said, you've done very, very well. So, good luck with all that, and hope to see you at some future community events as well. So
thanks for having me. So yeah, love. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So okay, so we'll take a quick break. Right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to M365 UK. Hope you enjoyed the first session from Gautam on the What's Up with PnP PowerShell, especially for a lot of the IT pros, and in particular working with the administration capabilities. And like I mentioned, this session is being recorded, so hopefully by Saturday this weekend, I'll share the recording for that. So do subscribe to the M365 UK YouTube channel. But yeah, I think just want to say, big welcome to Pragati Jain here at M365 UK. And of course, the whole premise of Microsoft 365 UK is not only just SharePoint, Teams. Data is pretty much the engine or the oil anyways, regardless what systems we use. And certainly Power BI, a lot of folks use that. But I think, from Pragati's point of view, she's been a kind of, if you like, in the data analyst areas for many years. And she's an MVP in data platform here as well. So really looking forward to this session, and really the Power Query, I think, is what we're here for, to be honest with you. So looking at that built-in capabilities in terms of transforming that data and pulling that raw data. So I'll probably just hand over to Pragati on that note. And yeah, I think over to you, Pragati. Welcome to M365 UK.
Thanks, Chirag. I'm definitely very excited for the first time to be on your user group. So I'll just share my screen, and then I'll do the talking as I share my screen. And,
Thank you.
So yeah, I think I can start, right? Yeah.
Go for it.
So yeah, welcome everyone. Good evening, and I know there are a few people from India as well for the previous session. So yeah, thanks if you guys are joining the session. Thanks for joining at this time. So yeah, today welcome for my session, which is more around the Power Query in Power BI. So we'll be trying to unhide some basic, but I would say important steps and things in Power Query, which can really help a report builder to get started with her reporting in Power BI. So before I start my session, those who don't know me, my name is Pragati Jain, and as Chirag said, I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP as well. And if you guys know about Microsoft Power BI community, I'm also one of the super user at Microsoft Power BI community, because that's what my passion is basically, because I just like to help people with Power BI related queries. And yeah, I've got a little bit for me as well there, because when I tend to help people, I tend to learn more. So that's why I keep on doing, helping people on the Power BI community, because it just helps my learning a lot. And in addition, I've got 10 plus years of industry experience, and currently I'm working as a senior consultant at Azure ID here in London. The other thing is I'm also organizer at Data Weekend conference. So if any of you guys are looking to, maybe start your speaking journey, or you're already good at it and really want to, contribute by sharing your knowledge with people globally, then our next Data Weekend conference is coming on 14th May, and our CFS is still open. So if you guys are interested in submitting sessions, then, do reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And one fun fact about me, I'm a painter and I just like to proudly call myself a techie artist. So that's what something fun about me. And yeah, do reach out to me guys on my social networking platforms. I've got my own blog website as well, so you can leave a message there, or you can leave me a message, or just connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter. And I'm also there on Microsoft Power BI community, so you can send me a message there as well. And I've recently started my YouTube channel, not much going on there, but yeah, still it's there, and you'll see some new content coming out soon for sure. So before starting my session, those who have attended my session before, I generally go through the agenda, like what I'll be, talking through and showing you guys in the next 50, 60 minutes or so. So yeah, this session is a one slide and all demo session. So this is the only slide I've got. I'll show you everything, in Power BI related to Power Query. So we'll just try to, and one thing is, like, this session is use case based session. So I'll be, bringing up few real world scenarios, like, where we can, use these kind of scenarios to or these kind of transformations in Power Query to, just enrich our data. So yeah, we'll start with, bringing in some basic data in Power Query and Power BI. I'll show you few basics around Power Query, like what different sections are, and then I'll take you through some transformations. Then further, we'll also see, how we can quickly create a custom or conditional column in Power BI. Within Power Query editor, and we'll be looking at the advanced editor code as well. So yeah, don't take this session as like a heavy M code base, but yeah, this session may help you just with some great tips and tricks within Power Query, which one should always do before start with the reporting within Power BI. So yeah, let's not just wait, and let's just start it. So I have got this Power BI window already open. So this is Power BI desktop. And what we'll do is, let's just go to Power Query and Power BI. So those of you guys who come from Excel background, they know it really well, like what Power Query is about. But let's see what Power BI has got around Power Query. So in Power BI, at the top ribbon, there's something called transform data. If you go to transform data, a new window appears, and that's what Power Query editor in Power BI is about. So before I tell you about the different kind of sections, what we see in Power Query, let's bring in some, basic data. So, it will be easy for me to just tell you the bits around Power Query. So what I'll do is I'll just bring in a basic CSV file data. Okay, the first thing is I'm just trying to work with the smallest data sets I can, is because I just don't want Power Query to, take a lot of time while I'm showing things, because when you are especially dealing with bigger data sets, Power Query can be, slower. So that's why I just thought I'll just start. I'll just show you things using a smaller data set, so it's easy also, and to, learn as well. So let's just start bringing some data. So what I'll do is I'll start with the basic file. Okay, and that's a CSV file for me. And I'll bring a Disneyland reviews data. Now, one thing is, whatever data sets I'm using in this session, I have got them, covered in the deck, what I just started showing you. So I've got the links for these data sets, and all these data sets are freely available online. And myself being a fan of Kaggle data sets, I just try to pull most of the data sets from there. So I've got the respective links from there, so you can go and play around with that data. And obviously, whatever I'm showing today, I'll be sharing this Power BI file with as well with the attendees, so you can just pick it up and you can try different things, or what I have already shown you in this session. So yeah, so once you bring in a new data source, this is a CSV file, and you can see, like, we have got there are not many columns in that data, right? So you can just see there are 6 columns. So the first thing you do is bring in the data in Power Query, hit OK. So once you hit OK, you see 3 things in Power Query. So like, for example, I can see 3 different sections here, or I would say 4. So at the top, there's a ribbon. So now this ribbon is more around what you can do with the data. Like at the top, I use this source to, bring in the new source. Then there are a few transform things that you can do on your data. Then there are a few bits around add columns to your existing data, and there are a few view elements to the data as well. So that's the top ribbon, which is most helpful when you are trying to, use different kind of options to modify or, play around with your data within Power Query. Then on the left, whenever you import a data set in Power BI. So that data set is shown on the left under queries pane. So you can see like we imported a Disneyland review CSV file data. So that's what you see here. Then in the middle, we see something like all the columns. So that's basically your data. So you can see like, okay, what all columns are here. And yeah, if you go further to the right, you can see seeing anything?
All right. Can somebody, John Allison, if you don't mind, mute yourself?
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I thought someone is asking something. Sorry. So the middle area is more around your data. So when I loaded this data, it had these all columns, and I can see like what all values are there in the data, and I can see it's more very much familiar to Excel. So those who have worked with Excel, they'll just find it very easy, because obviously it is Microsoft Power BI and Microsoft Excel, both are Microsoft products. So when the team started bringing Power BI together, they took most of the elements from Excel. So that's why the Power Query is very similar to what we see in Excel. And on the right, you can see something around the name of your data set. Obviously, you can change it if you want to change it, but I'll keep it same. And then at here, you can see all the applied steps. So applied step is something when you bring in data in Power BI, in Power Query. So Power BI does some prerequisite transformations on a data. So those prerequisite transformations are more around. So for example, if I go to the first step, which is basically, just bringing in my data. So you can see at the top, there's something like a formula bar. I'll just make it a little bigger. So you can see at the top, this is a formula bar, and it shows you like, okay, I'm reading my data through a CSV file, and it shows me the path on my local machine from where I'm bringing in the data, the delimiter in the CSV file, and the columns, and so on. So that's what that first source step tells us. Then the next step on there, if I click on that, it promotes the header. So if I go back to source, you can see the name of my columns is like column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and so far. And the first row has got the actual column names, which I would expect in my file to be. So if I go to the next step, what Power BI did was it promoted my first row in the data set as the headers. Right, so that's what I see. So I can see, yeah, now I see the right structure of the data. I can see, okay, there are column names, and then I've got the data in the rows below it. Then the third step, what Power BI did was, it's known as change type. So what it did was, based on its best judgment, it kind of gives a data type to different columns. We look at this, why this is, but give me a few more seconds. So you can see, like, for example, review ID, Power BI judged is a numeric value. So it kind of gave it a numeric kind of data type. Similarly, rating. So if I see my rating column, and if I kind of load more, I can see all the values in that column is kind of numeric. So yeah, Power BI got it right. It's like a numeric data type. Year, month, yeah, I'll come back to it in a few seconds. Review location, obviously we can see it's a text type. So Power BI on its best judgment gave it a text type of data type, and so on. So that's what, like, Power BI does when you bring in data for the first time in Power BI. So that's what it does. And the first and one thing what I really want to highlight here is, like, whatever best judgments that Power BI makes when you bring in data in Power BI is just based on the top 1,000 rows that it has read. So for example, data types, what Power BI has given to these columns is based on the top 1,000 rows that it has read. So not in all cases it will be right. It can go wrong in some cases. So we can see where it has gone wrong in one of our cases. So for example, if we see the year month column, right? Okay. Let me tell you one more thing. So whenever you see the columns in the data, if there is like a green line, it means everything is fine. But if something is like broken line or there is a red line, it means there is some problem with the column. Now, how do we find what problem is with the column? So let me show you a few more things, basic things in Power Query, but what could, really help us in, analyzing and judging and making judgment against the data, what we have loaded. So in Power Query, if you see at the top ribbon, there's like something, view. And if I go under view, I can see few data preview options. Okay, so let's start with column quality. Now, when I enable column quality, Power BI actually brought in few, different kinds of metrics shown against different columns that I've got in my data. Right. So for example, let me just take you through. So if I hover over my review ID column, I get like 3 different metrics: valid, error, and empty. Now, valid tells me whether all the values based on Power BI's judgment are valid in this column. So valid could be based on, like, for example, Power BI gave a data type to this column as numeric. So are all the values in that column numeric? So that's what counts into valid. Second option is error. Now, in this column, we see error is 0%. It means Power BI thinks there are no errors in this column. And empty is again 0%, which means there are no empty in this column. So every single row has got a value in it. So that's what those 3 metrics can help you in judging. Now, let's go back to the year month column, where we really see something has gone wrong because it looks quite different to the other columns in the data set, right? Now let's see what has gone wrong. So if you see this column, you can see something around error. Now it says, okay, it kind of shows you like it's not 100% valid and there are some errors in this column. So let's try to find out what that error is. Can we fix it or can we not fix it? Is it possible or not, right? Now, first thing here, whatever metrics, again, I'm saying that again, that all these metrics are based on the top 1,000 rows that Power BI reads while importing the data. So now, for example, my data set is quite small. It hasn't got more than few thousands of rows, but people, when you're working with like big data, like for example, you're connecting to a database and say you're getting like millions of rows. So you just can't rely on this factor, like less than 1% of error, because that's just based on the top 1,000 rows Power BI reads. So you may need to investigate further, like why that error is coming. But in this case, our file is quite small, right? So we can try to investigate why something has gone wrong in this column, why the date format, whether it's with the formatting or there are some values in the column which is, not working fine. So let's go back. So for that, what I will do is I'll just go and open my raw file to show you what error this column might have got. So what I'll do is I'll just go back to my folder where I've got the data sets and I'll just open this file. So let's just try to closely, investigate what error could have been. So what I'll just do is I will just make this a little bigger. And what I'll do is I'll just add some filters. So, we can actually go and see whether the values in the columns are going wrong or what's happening. So we have got error with this year month column, right? So let's just see what's there. So if I see in this year month column, it kind of looks, right to me, right? I mean, I can see, they are date kind of values, right? But let's see further down whether every value in that column is a date type or there's something else. Okay, so we can see like this column has got a text value in it along with the date type values. So that's where maybe Power BI is going wrong, because obviously if you guys come from a database background or Excel background, anything, you can always give a single data type to a column, right? Like for example, this column, I mean, if there are multiple kind of data types or different data type based values in your column, you can definitely make it text. But most of my values in this data set seems to be like date values, and only few rows have got missing in it. And if I see this value, it tells me more around, okay, maybe there was no data available for these rows. That's why I got them missing. So what we can also check in the data is, just to make sure we are doing things right, let's just select the missing rows and see what they have got. So if you see, there are a few rows. I mean, there are many rows with the missing date in it, right? So this is basically a reviews rating data where, different customers who have, different visitors around the world who visited to the different Disneyland, areas like Singapore, Canada, Australia. They just wrote certain review. So, few of them may just have missed putting a date against the review. So that's why it's kind of missing in the data. So what we can do to handle this is, one thing what we can quickly do is in our data set in Power BI, if we just replace this missing with empty or something, and then try to, change its data type to date and see whether there's still error or it fixes it. So yeah, let's try out what happens basically. So for this, what I will do first thing is, obviously, my data type has gone wrong because this column has got dates along with text values, right? Now, suppose if I change this to like text value, okay? Suppose I make it text. Now, if I make text, then Power BI shows me, can I replace the current data type or you want to add another step? So let's do one thing. We'll just replace the current one. So when I replace the current one, I can still see there is error. Okay. Now let's do another thing. Now in Power BI, okay, so we are fixing this error first. So let's focus more here. What we'll do is we'll replace that missing with empty. And let's see whether Power BI handles those empty values or not. So what I'll do is I'll just right click on my column and there's something called replace values. I'll click on replace values and it asks me two parameters, like what values I want to replace and with what value I want to replace my source value, right? So in my case, I have got missing as my text value and I just want to replace it with, empty or blank. So I just leave replace with as blank and hit OK. Now, as soon as I do that, I can see my error parameter has gone to 0%. If you remember earlier, we had error for less than 1% rows, but now that goes to empty. That less than 1% rows are empty because we just replaced missing with empty, right? So we have in a way removed errors. But let's see if I modify this year, month to now date data type, does that work or not? So for that, what we'll do is we'll again click on the column. Okay, and one more thing, whenever you make any changes in Power Query, even a single thing, that is reflected as a new step under applied step. So you remember earlier we only had 3 steps and then I replaced the value and you can see that step what you have done. So for example, sorry guys, I'm just doing things and showing you at the same time. So we are getting that in the right way. So for example, when I replaced the value, a new step was added under applied step. Now suppose if you really want to see what that has done, there's a gear icon. If you click on that, it shows you a window and it shows you what that step has done. So in this step, we actually replace the missing with blank, right? So that's what it's doing. And another good thing in Power BI, it's very good if you are, working on a big project where you have got so many things going on within Power Query or Power BI. It's always good to have a proper, naming convention. So for example, this replaced value is basically missing my, basically replacing a text value in my year month column. So, it's always good to have a proper name for that step. So what you can do is right click on it and rename it. So this is basically replacing values in year month column, right? So you can give whatever name works for you, but yeah, it is good for, from documentation point of view as well. Like for example, you work on a report and maybe after 6 months, someone else is going to take over your work. So, just make life easy for someone who's going to take over after you. So, these things can really help. And obviously you have done a report, say 1 year back, and now today something came up and you want to fix few things. And if you have these kind of documentations or, proper naming conventions, that will help you as well, like what you did in this step. So yeah, make sure you do these kind of things because once you end up with like 20 steps or so, it's hard to go back and do these things. So always try to do them while you are, creating those steps in Power Query. So yeah, we got that. Now we don't see any error, but now let's see if we modify the data type of this column to date. Does it work or does it still give me error? So there's another way of changing the data type rather than going to the top ribbon and transforming the data type is you'd right click on your column there's something called change type. So when you click on change type, you have so many options there. Okay. Now in my case, I want to give it as date. So I'll click on date. Then, okay. So now if you see, Power Query just did it right. We don't have anything with the error. So replacing that single text value in this column with empty worked for us because Power BI accepts empty or blank values in our date type of column. So it's a small thing, but it can impact a lot of analysis when you're doing further down the line while creating the report, right? Okay, so in essence of time, I think I really need to go a little fast. Okay, so that's the first thing we did. So we looked at, column quality. Let's look at two more, data preview elements because I really like these things and they can just help you in, having a high level glance of your data, like how the data is. Let's look at column distribution. Now, column distribution is more around, it kind of tells your distribution around the values in that column. So for example, if I see the reviewer location, I can see it has got like 50 distinct values and 19 unique values. Now, when you come from a data background, distinct and unique has a different meaning. Distinct is more around like how many values, individual values are there in that column. And unique is how many distinct values in that column has only occurred once. So you can see there are 19 distinct values in this column that has already occurred once. So there could be few values like, see, Australia, it's like multiple times, right? But there could be few values like Singapore that has occurred only once, maybe. So that's what is difference between distinct and unit. And yeah, it kind of gives you a high level view because when you're trying to do some distinct counts in Power BI for your reporting, then you have at least few things in your mind. Okay, how was my data distribution earlier when I started bringing in the data? So it just helps you, creating the insights in the right direction. Then the other thing what I want to show here is column profile. Now what column profile does is, so if I click on a single column, let's not go with this, let's go with rating. Okay, so you can see at the bottom what Power BI did was you can increase the size just to see what it has. So you can see like it kind of shows you the column statistics. So you can see like, okay, so obviously Power BI is showing everything based on the top 1,000 rows it reads. So that's why this count will always be 1,000. But you can see a few other things like there are no errors, there are no empty values, there are 5 distinct values, there are no unique values, no zeros, no nan, and it tells you like minimum is 1, maximum is 5, because this is a rating column which accepts value between 1 to 5. So that's what you see there. You can see an average, standard deviation, and so on. And obviously you can see the distribution as well, like 5 has occurred mostly in that column. So that's a column distribution kind of, summary you get with this column profile. So yeah, these things are really one of my favorites in Power Query when you're bringing in data at the start. Okay, so let's start with few transformations now. So yeah, we have already gone through the few basics in Power Query, what all different section is, what all things are we can do. Now let's do the actual transformations. Okay, now look at the branch column. Okay. Now in this branch column, I can see, I know this is a Disneyland data set, right? And if I see these branch values, I can clearly see like every name of that place is, has a prefix called Disneyland _. But suppose if I'm trying to visualize some information around the distribution of ratings by branch, and I don't want these branch name to be displayed with Disneyland _, then how can I do that within the data? So let's see how we can just extract the last part of this branch column from this column. So let's see what we do. So in Power BI, few things. Now this can be done in multiple ways. Now, if you don't want to keep the existing column, you can do the transformation on the same column. But if you want to keep this column and want to add a new column, then you can do it that way as well. So I'll show you both the ways. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is we'll try to do it in a new column. So for that, what I'll do is I'll just right click on my column and duplicate it. Once I duplicate it, I get the new column with the name like branch copy because it's a duplicate copy of the branch column, right? And now in this column, what I really want is I want to, remove the Disneyland _ and just keep the last part. Now, one way of it could be using a replace command. So what you do is right click on the column, go to replace values. And what I really want is I want to replace my Disneyland underscore with space. OK, and if I hit OK, I just end up with my values which I was requiring, right? California, Hong Kong, and Paris. OK, this is one way. The other way could be there is something like extracting values within a column. So that I'll show you on this existing column, how we do that. Click on your column. On the top, there is something like extract. So if you see on the top ribbon, under transform, there's something like extract. When you expand that, there are so many options. OK, now, in our case, we want to extract text after delimiter. Now, in this case, the delimiter for us will be underscore. OK, because I just want these values. I don't want anything before that. So I can use text after delimiter option. Once I do that, Power BI just brings in a new window. And obviously in this column, the delimiter is underscore. So I want every value to be extracted after underscore. And if I click OK, you can see I end up with just those values and you can test them here. OK, so yeah, one thing, guys, whenever you do a transformation, make sure you are testing it like it's working the way based on your requirement, because sometimes we may make small mistakes, right? Everyone tend to make mistakes, right? So make sure you test those things and see whatever I did here, they got added as a step. So for example, I created duplicated column of branch and then I replaced value. So I ended up with this. Then in the branch column, I went and extracted text. OK, and what I'll do is I'll just remove this column. OK, I'll just keep one of them. So I'll just go and you can remove the steps easily in Power Query in whatever order you want, and it just removes them. But I'll just keep the last one where I've extracted my text using the delimiter. OK, so this was one of the simple one. OK, now the next one, what you may need in few scenarios is like adding a quick index column on your data set. So Power Query gives you a very, single click kind of option. So for example, in this data set, I want to add an index. So index is basically giving every single row in this data a unique numeric value. OK, so for that, what we can do is at the top, there's something called add column. So you go to add column, and under add column, you have got so many options. We'll look at few of them in the coming time. But now I want to add an index column, right? So I go to index column. And if I click on that, I've got so many options. Like I can make my index column to start from 0. I can make my index column to start from 1. Or I can give a custom value, like from which value I want my index to start. But I will go with 1 because I just want to go with basic row number for every row. So I just click from 1. And if I go to the right, an index column is created and it starts from 1 and goes to the last row number, right? And generally what I do is I like to keep my index column in the starting. OK, so what in Power Query you can do is you can just drag it. Once you drag it, you can see my index column is at the starting, then review ID, rating, and so on. So that's the easiest way of, adding an index column. And index column can just help in few things, like especially if you're creating some kind of groupings within your data set and you want to rename give a index to every group name that you have done, then yeah, it kind of helps. And even if you're trying to do some kind of DAX calculations for your Power BI reporting, especially the ranking based calculations, then index column can really help. So that's the quickest way you can create an index column. Now quickly see how we can create a custom column in Power BI. Now, as you see, I'll just finish few more elements and then I'll see if there are any questions. OK, so suppose in this data set, this is a rating column. And it has got 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. OK, now what I want is I want to represent these rating values as stars. So how do I do that? So one way is what? Now I want to keep my rating column and I want to create a new column as rating stars. So what we can do is we can create a conditional column. So again, under add column, there was something called conditional column when we were looking at the index, right? So we can see this conditional column. So we hit that conditional column, a new window appears. Now in this new window, I want to create a new column. where I have got, I'll name it as rating stars, and it is based on my rating column. Okay, first thing, I want to give every number a star value. Like for example, if it is 3, then I want to give 3 stars. If it is 2, I want to represent it as 2 stars. So how do I get that character in Power BI? Now, the easiest thing is unicares work pretty well in Power BI. So what you can do is, so just go to Google and search few things. Like for example, unicare characters. Okay. And yeah, we can go with Power BI. Now, once you do that, you can actually get very good websites which actually have unicare. So like, for example, there's a blog here, that's fine. But you're looking for stars. So let's, just take our search to the stars, okay? Because I'm looking for star. So what I do is unicare characters for stars. Can I get a star here? No, this is not the link, but yeah. Okay, so star symbol. So I go to Unicode area and I can see, okay, star. Now what I want is I want to use this star, black star. So what I'll do is I'll just copy it. Okay, so I've copied it. Now I go back to my Power Query. Now my rating stars is based on my rating column. If it equals 5, then I want it to be represented as 5 stars, right? So it's like just a copy and paste element, guys. So it's yeah, easy on a Windows machine. Yeah, maybe on Mac you need to use just different keys to copy and paste, but yeah, that works. And obviously I want different values for different rating values as well, right? In that column. So for 5, I need 5 stars. For 4, I'll need 4 stars. Similarly, you can keep on adding clause as many as you want, but I know in this column I've just got 5 unique values and 5 distinct values. So 5 distinct values. So I know I'm creating 5 clause there. So I go and do that. And again, if it is 2, then I'll go for 2 stars. And obviously my last condition, that's my else condition. So that's my 1 star. Oops, sorry about that. So that's what I have created. Now, if I hit OK, Power BI creates a column. Now, first thing, whenever you create a column, as a rule of thumb, give it a proper data type. Keep that in your mind. Always you have to do that. So obviously our rating stars have got some kind of character. So I think text kind of data type should work. So what I'll do is I'll just go to rating stars. I can go to change type and make it text. So I've got a text data type. Now I want to validate whether my rating stars value is right as compared to rating. So what I'll do is, again, I'll just bring it here so it's easy for me to view things, right? And let's select one value, okay? Let's go with, say, 2. And hit OK. So I just added a filter on this column so you can see a filter row. But let's see if there are only 2 stars in this column. 2 star values in this column. So yeah, that's right. So our mapping works fine. Similarly, you can see for a few more, like maybe go for 5 and click OK. So we have got a filter for 5. And we can just see if there should be only 5 star values. So yeah, that's right. So yeah, you can test for others as well. So yeah, that's how if you're doing any transformation, make sure you're validating it, because that's the biggest thing. If you go wrong with them, then it will just, give you wrong insights, right? So that's a simple conditional column in Power Query. Then let me quickly show you if I want to add some kind of prefix or suffix to my value. So like, for example, this is my review ID column, and I know it's an ID column, right? And suppose if I want to add underscore ID or ID underscore then the value, how do I do that? So first thing, obviously, if I'm looking to add something which is text, I need to make the data type of this column as text, right? So first of all, I go and modify its data type. So I can add that prefix. So I'll make it text first. OK, now in the prefix, I want to add ID underscore and the value. So what you can do is in Power BI, click on your column. There's something called format at the top. And I want to add a prefix. You can add suffix as well, but let's go with prefix. Now what prefix I want to add is I want to add ID underscore and then the value. So if I click OK, then you can see like I have got ID and then underscore my value. So that's our quickest way to get some prefixes or suffixes in Power BI using Power Query Editor. Okay. Okay. Now, have you got any questions so far, Chirag?
No, I think we had earlier suggestion of what are the best tips to get to it, but I think Christian has answered it, so we can come to that if
Thanks,
yeah.
Christian. Okay, let's quickly see a few more things. Yeah, I just feel like I've got less time to cover stuff, but yeah, let's see how much I cover.
No, you're doing good. You got about 10 minutes, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, let's see. We will cover a few more things in 10 minutes, guys. Okay, so let me just quickly pick what I really want to show you. Okay, let's look at some, quick age calculations in Power BI. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll bring some new data set here. And sorry, it's a CSV, I think. So what I'll do is I'm bringing up players data set. Okay. And in this players data set, what I have got is like I've got some information around some players from the world. And yeah, you can see the birth date and yeah, everything in there. Yeah, it's a public information. So yeah, I haven't got it from anywhere, guys. So I haven't done anything wrong. It's available on Kaggle. So yeah, I got that. Now, suppose if you've got some data set like this, where you're working with things like birth date, and you are really in need of bringing a value saying age of that person. So how do you do that like quickly in Power Query? Now, first thing, somehow this file, when I read it, by default added some empty columns. So what you can do is you can just remove them in Power Query. So one thing is you can remove them one by one, like remove this, right click and remove it. But if you want to remove them in one step, how you can do that is in a Windows machine, just use a control key to do a multiple selection of the columns you want to remove and right click and remove columns. You remove them in a single click. Okay, now how do we calculate age of these players in a single click? So what I'll do is first thing, I'll duplicate this column because I want to keep their birth date. Okay, and on the other column, I want their age. Now in Power Query, there is a very easy way to do it. If you click on your column where you want the age, go to transform under date, this area. Let me make that a little bigger. So under transform in the date section, if you expand that, you have something like age at the top. So what this age will do is you have already got a birth date, right? So it will just calculate the difference between the birth date in that column and today's date and give you an age from today's date, right? So if you click that age button, then in that column, Power Query actually added something new. Obviously, it's like not the appropriate age value that we would like to see, but it's like something into duration. But you need to do just one more step on it to get that age into years, because obviously we say like my age is 32, my age is 25, right? So it's in years. So we want that information to be represented in the right way. So for that, what we'll do is right click on your column because it's a duration, right? And I want to get it as years. So I just go and use that total years, and that value is now 64.21. Obviously, age is not in decimal. So what the other thing we'll do is, okay, first thing, it's the player's age. So let's rename that. Okay, make sure you're doing these things, because if you don't do them, it may just confuse you, okay, what that information is about. It's player's age. Now, age can never be a decimal number. It needs to be a whole number. So we click on it and make it a whole number. So now you can see, okay, 64 years, 59 years, 63, and so on. So that's how you get, like, in few clicks, that age value if you've got a birth date and you really want to work with age in your data set. Okay, that's the quick thing. Okay, now, let's see some grouping in Power Query. So for that, what I'll do is I'll just bring in another data set quickly. And what I'll do is, again, I'll go to new source. I think it's a CSV. I'll go, okay, again, reviews data. I really love reviews data. So I got the Disneyland reviews and now some book reviews related data where people have reviewed few books they have read from different parts of the world. So that's a book review data. And I'll just click OK, and it will load that data. So I've got this book review data. Now in Power BI, now suppose, obviously, sorry, in Power Query, suppose if you really want to work with some kind of groupings, like for example, this is your raw data, but you want to get this data grouped or aggregated at a certain level. So like, for example, here you can see I've got some information, demographics information like city, state, country, and then I've got some information like, for example, what kind of rating people have given to that particular book, right? So suppose if I want to get an aggregated view where I see like for every country, what's the average rating for the books? So how do I just create that kind of, simple small data set in Power BI? So that's kind of easy to do. But before doing that, one quick tip, guys. Now in Power BI, suppose if I want to create a copy of this data set, I right click on it and there are two options. One is duplicate and one is reference. Let's start with duplicate. When I click on duplicate, I have all the steps, okay? And when I go to book reviews, I've got 3 steps. So what Power BI did, Power Query did here was when I created a duplicated copy, it actually got everything duplicated. So for example, if I had some transformations here, like say I removed these columns, okay? So I just removed them. So I've got that column, and when I duplicated it, it's actually, let me remove this and do that again, because I want to show you like whatever I do on the raw data set is duplicated in the duplicated data set. So I had like 4 things here going on. If I duplicate it, it brings those 4 steps again. So Power BI is redoing those 4 transformations again. So that's what duplicate is doing and taking the equal space. But suppose if I don't want to do that, I don't want Power BI to do those steps again. So what I do is right click on my data set and there's something called reference. So once I reference it, it just brings in everything within the single step. So all the transformations which I did on my raw data set book reviews, that has not been applied again because Power BI by default took those transformations and it's not redoing them. So this is the better way of doing it. Now in this data set, I'll try to create a simple grouping, okay? And that grouping is I want average rating by different states or different country. So what I will do is, obviously I want a grouping by country. So I'll keep 2 columns. One is country, and or we can do is, don't do that. We just click on country, go to transform. Oh no, group by is here. So on the home tab, there's something called group by, okay? So click on group by and it asks you like by what column you want to group by. In my case, I want to group by this and I want like average rating. So that's the name of the column you're giving. And that operation should be average of my rating. And if I hit OK, Power BI will just group this data at a country level and I'll end up with only 2 columns. One is country and one is average rating. So I can see there's some average rating against different country. So that's the simple grouping we can do. And yeah, we can just rename it because yeah, it's a grouping, right? So country grouping or rating, or maybe rating by country, something like that. You can give whatever name looks good to you. And suppose if you really want to, use some more things in your grouping, like rather than just grouping by a single column or getting more metrics as well. So what we'll do is go to the source again, okay? And what I'll do this time is I'll get the average rating along with total reviews for that country. So again, we'll go to group by and we click on advanced. So once you click on advanced, it allows you to add grouping as well at a different level. So for example, if I want by say country and say by state, and I want average rating, which is average of my rating column. And suppose I also want total reviews to be seen. So yeah, count rows, that will work in this case and I'll hit OK. So in this case, I'll end up with 4 columns. So I have got my aggregation at a country and state level and showing 2 metrics, which is my average rating and total reviews. So that's how you can, create simple groupings in Power Query. And the last thing what I would really like to show is how you can clearly merge 2 columns. Because sometimes it happens you end up in a data set where you have got like first name and last name in 2 columns, but you want to show them as names. So how you do that? So in my case, I'll try to do book title and book author in a single column. So what you do is just use Control key to, select both your columns. right click, and there's something like merge columns. So once you click on merge column, it asks you what separator you want. In my case, I'll give a custom separator, so we know like we have done something there. And what I'll do is book with author. That's what my main column will be, because I'm clubbing book title and book author together. If I click OK, I end up with a column having book title along with, book author. So that's the, easiest merge column thing you can do in Power Query. I have got a few more things to show, but I'm not sure how much time I can go forward, Chirag. So happy to take any questions.
I think I think we would love to. I think for you to share more. I think we've just gone over, so I think we'll probably head for a quick wrap. And I think, to be honest with you, I think you've shared so many tips and tricks. And some of them I didn't realize. While you were presenting, I kind of went through my SQL syntax, which is what I used to use, concat and sum and all this. So it's really...
I think there are like so many things in Power Query to share. I literally have this sheet, guys. I had like total 26 things to show you today, but I think I just showed you like 17 or so.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think what will be good, and we'll definitely, I think, plan if you like, if you're obviously up for it, available, then definitely in the future we can maybe have another part 2 or even an advanced.
I'll just wrap up with few things, guys. So yeah, I'll share this Power BI file with Chirag and even the deck. So in the deck, I've got a slide which says data sources used in the demo. So you can basically go and pull up these demos. Obviously, I didn't get a chance to show you the adventure work stuff, but you can play around with the other data sets. So yeah, you have everything what you have got for this session, what I just used. So it will be easier for you. And yeah, if you have got any questions, then yeah, feel free to ask them, or you can connect me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or my blog, or leave me a message on, Power BI community as well. So yeah, thank you guys for...
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, Pragati. I think it's awesome to at least for you to make your time and be here with us at M365 UK. So absolutely, I think attendees, by all means, unmute yourself, ask any question. And I think, like I was saying earlier, there was a question mentioned. For somebody who's new to Power BI or some areas of it, what is the logical ways of getting started? If you're able to share those tips, maybe through your slides when you do share, then obviously that would be great as well. But I think over to the floor. But while you're doing that, please feel free to fill out the feedback form, again, similar to Gautam earlier.
Guys, definitely fill up the feedback. That's really important for us as speakers, like what we did well, what didn't go well, and how we can improve for the next session, or what you would really like to hear from us in the next session. And yeah, one thing on that quick tip, guys, like whoever is trying to start with Power BI or Power Query, just start with a simple flat file. Like, for example, I got a CSV file as the first data set, right? Just import it in Power BI and try to explore the options there. And obviously you have got so much, good documents from Microsoft itself. So you can go to Microsoft Learn website and you can actually get so many, cool scenarios there. So if you're really, looking into like, from where should I start, and, how do I start with Power BI? I think just go and, visit the Microsoft Power BI documentation. It's really good.
That's good tip. I think, thanks, Andrew, as well, in the chat window, the Cloud Challenge series as well. So they're always good ones. And,
yes,
most of the time, they're very short and very digestible cloud challenges, and you can then earn yourself a free certification exam vouchers. And so that's always a good incentive for trying things out. So absolutely, I think, and Pragati, you're getting some good comments there as well. Great session and what have you. So I think just want to say big thanks to yourself, Pragati, as well as Gautam earlier on the session around PnP PowerShell. So with that, just want to kind of quickly wrap up around this to say if you haven't already, for Gautam's as well, feel free to the same link anyways for the feedback. So please do that. And then obviously, like I mentioned, next month we've got Thomas and Todd, long-time MVP, 2 great sessions on Power Automate approvals. as well as another session on PowerShell, maybe some elements of PnP, but certainly if you're an administrator and across all the services, then Todd will be demonstrating a lot of that too. So we look forward to
Can't hear you,
welcoming
Chirag. You're gone.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Back. You're back.
Good. It's probably my network, I think. So yeah, I think so look forward to your presence next month rather instead of next week. And I mentioned earlier that there's a community event happening, Teams Nation, next week Wednesday on the 23rd of March. Again, they covering around 13 tracks across Microsoft 365. It's free, 100%. Feel free to tune in a particular time that you want to go for the session. So teamsnation.com. And I think with that, I think I'll just I've posted the links in the chat window as well. So the recording will be shared sometime this Friday, and as well as a couple of slides from Pragati, as well as a few slides from Gautam too. And like they mentioned, feel free to follow them, and I would recommend following them because they post some good samples, community works that they do. And so yeah, with that, I think hopefully we'll meet in the future with some of the community events, Pragati. But other than that, attendees, big thanks to you for giving up your time to be here. And until then, be safe, take care, and all the best.
All pleasure mine. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening or good night. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Pragati.